Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today I'm coming back to this find that I published a few days ago, about a week ago. And if you look on my list of videos, you just go back to the last but one video and you'll find this find here. But what I've got today are some new close-ups of this thing. And I've done this meme, which I put on Mars Magazine here. And in this meme, what I've done, I've got the left and the right view, which are the most recent close-ups we've got of it. Well, they're not really close-ups, but they're closer than what we've had before. And I've compared it to this find from 2015, which is what was initially called a sarcophagus, but which may well turn out to be a statue, actually. But being in a lying position or lying on the ground and a similar shape, I thought it was very relevant and very similar. And there are lots of similarities here. And they are 2,300 miles apart on the surface. In other words, these two here at the top, which are the left and right cameras of the same thing, are in Jezero Crater, in images taken recently. There's lots of images of this I should say. But these are the best ones so far. So that's Jezero Crater, which is where the Perseverance rover is, okay? And this one at the bottom was taken years ago, about 6 years ago, by the Curiosity rover in Gale Crater, which is almost exactly 2,300 miles apart on Mars, okay? So this is further south, this is a bit further north, okay? But quite a long way apart, but very similar, not only in size, but also shape and design, okay? And you can see that in this image. I've got it up here. I'm just going to point that out to you. Then I'm going to show you the Gigapans that I've got. And you can match them up, and you can look at the left and the right, and you can look at also this one from years ago, which I recently put up. Now, I have done videos on both of these before. I've done a couple on this one, on the one at the bottom here, the sarcophagus or statue. The best one to watch is actually one that I did quite recently, which is last year. I did an update on it because I did a new Gigapan of it, which I'm going to show you. But there is one here that goes right back to September 2015, okay? And that's got all the credits on it and everything. I'm not sure who found this. It may have been Terry Burnett or someone like that at the time who initially spotted it. And then lots of people published it, including myself, obviously. And it kind of went viral all over the world, and it made a few websites and things like that. But the press were reluctant to publish it, although one or two did. Not many went on with it because it was a little bit too good, I think. Okay, I have sent it to them since, and they've ignored it. So the mainstream media, as usual, just do the bidding of NASA and the other space agencies, and aren't interested in facts. They're just interested in propaganda. Okay, so. There's the original one, 2015. There's the last one, 2020. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. Okay. There are a number of these on Mars, but these are the best ones so far, and they are very similar. And when you get in close, if you look closely at this one thing that I find really interesting about these is the actual fact that they're so similar to ones we have on Earth. They are almost identical to some we have on Earth. Now, this one is in a cathedral in the UK somewhere, I think. This clip here, and is one of the kings of England, or one of the, it's probably dating back to the sort of 12th century or something, maybe 13th century, and is lying on a sort of bed here. This is like a tomb in a cathedral, I think, or church. Now, I can't remember which one, but I'm sure some of you could find out and may even recognise this. I can't remember now. But notice that the headrest here is got a sort of, this is made of bronze, by the way, this one. And we've got a headrest, like a cushion made of bronze, to support the head. Okay? Now that's important. And we've also got the feet here with a sort of bit of rock or something there, or a representation of some rock there, and the shoes and everything, and a gown, a sort of burial gown or robes here. So this is probably a king, I think, if I remember rightly. Okay, and there's a lot of these in cathedrals and old churches and cathedrals in the UK, going back hundreds and hundreds of years, going almost back 1,000 years, some of them, about 800 years or 900 years, something like that. They go right back, okay? And you'll find the same in places like France as well, and Belgium, places like that as well. So now, like I said, the important thing to look at is the headrest. There's one here. There's that headrest supporting the neck of this one. And this one has beads or something like a headdress here, similar to this, very similar to this here, okay? And what looks like beads coming down over the side, okay? A cross on the side here, and what looks very similar to this one, we have this line coming across here, but I think this is actually a casket. But as some people have pointed out, these parts on the base of this one probably indicate that this was stood up, okay? But it may not have been. It may have been attached to something else here. It may have been part of a display or a sort of a tomb like this one in the church, okay? So this may have been standing up, may not, we don't really know, but to me this looks actually like a casket because we've got a lid here, it seems, going right across. And then we've got these details on here. Now, let's look at the top one, because the top one isn't the same, but it's a very similar position and a very similar angle and about, I would say, a similar size. Now, I don't know exactly how big either of these are, but we'll work that out in a minute. We'll look at the Gigapans and compare the two and see if we can work it out. I think this is over 6 foot long, and this one at the bottom I think is probably under 6 foot long. This is more like 7 or 8 feet, the one at the top, and this one at the bottom is more like 5. I could be wrong, but we'll work that out in a minute. It's not really that important, but it is a detail. And the one at the top here, we've got the left and the right. The left's at the top here, and the right's at the bottom. Now, these are both being enhanced, and you can see on both of them quite, well, reasonably clearly that there's a head support on each one, okay? But the brighter one, this one here, the right one, you can see it better, just here. You can see a kind of part to it there, which is supporting the head, which has this curious kind of point to it there, and then the forehead, then the nose, then this sort of chin area. There's not much detail here, it's in shadow, so we're not seeing a lot of facial detail, but if you zoom right in, there is some indication of an eye there, like a dark patch just there, but it's really faint. What I'll do in a minute is I'll really darken this up and add contrast, see if we can drag out some facial detail on this thing, because there probably is some, but you can't see it very well. In this one, you can kind of see a bit of a shadow here as well, where I think there's an eye, okay? But you can see, you can just about make out this head support here, right? That's really important. And then we have the body with some detail on top. Now, I did point this out in the previous video, but this is slightly better because these angles are a bit closer and the lighting's better than before. So there's a bit more detail than we had before, okay? But you can see that there's something on top here, that T-shaped thing there. And we've got what I think is possibly a hand or arm coming over here, and some detail here. It's very hard to say, but it looks like there may be a hand or arm coming this way, and then another one coming from the other side and coming over this thing here. I'm not sure, but we got this detail here. There's an object there. Now, these are probably objects as in the sort of thing that an Egyptian pharaoh would probably be buried with in a casket or in a sarcophagus like this. Now, this is not an actual sarcophagus. This is a figurine of Tutankhamun, not a brilliant one. These are basically like little replica mummy type figurines that you can buy. I don't know how much they are, but it's not great. But what it does show is the crossed arms here and the shroud coming round here, right? Got a shroud, burial shroud. The arms are kind of tucked into that, and we got a hand. Let's do that again. Obviously, we've got an arm coming up here and a hand holding the scepter or staff here, and another one holding another one here, okay? Which you can see pretty well. There's a hand there. And then we got one there, going over this one here. Okay, and there's that one that it's got a sort of point to it down there. So, and then the sort of beard goes over the top of that. So there's some quite complex details in here. Now, that to me is very similar to what's going on in this one at the top here from Jezero Crater. Now, I'll remove some of these details and we'll have a look. And what I'll do is I'll crank up the contrast and see what happens, because we've got two to compare here. And one of them will probably look more clear than the other when I do this. Now, the reason why they're slightly different, this one's brighter, is that the actual images, which I'll show you them now briefly, the actual Gigapans, one is slightly brighter than the other. Okay, this is the left one, right? And then watch it move. Concentrate on where my cursor is in the middle here. Concentrate there. And there's the right one. This one's more yellow, but this one's lighter. So there is a difference between them. And when you enhance them, they change a bit because of that. For some reason, and I don't know why, there is a very slightly different yellow filter on each of these cameras. They've both got a yellow filter, but one of them is a sort of lighter yellow, and one of them's more of a deeper yellow, okay? Which tints everything this sort of sandy colour, okay? Now, it's not the same filters we get on the images taken in Gale Crater by the other rover, by the old Curiosity rover, okay? Those are much more brown, sort of orangey brown, okay? And here's the two actual images. Here's the right one. Here's the left one. There it is there. There's the right one. There it is there, okay? So they're quite... The actual angle is quite different. You can see between these two that the angle is quite different because we've got two different cameras, even though they're both on the mast of the rover. And then we have this Gigapan, which is much more orangey brown. This is the orange filter that they use on the Curiosity rover, which is a deeper orange. It's not dark orange, it's kind of a medium orange, I would say. It's quite a nasty colour, and it makes everything go this kind of dirty brown. Whereas the images from Jezero are much brighter. So the yellow filter actually really does help in many ways, but it tints everything. But you can see the difference between this one and this one. This one's kind of more of a yellowy tint, and this one isn't quite so much. This has got more of a greeny tint to it. Okay? You can see kind of a greenish kind of tint to that one. So they're not the same filters they're using. Now, there is obviously a reason for this, and it does help you see into the shadows, okay? When you use an orange or yellow filter, all it means is the shadows are not black, and you can see into them. And that's often where the goodies are, often where the interesting details are, which tell what these things are. So in a way, that's good, okay? But as for the brown, the orangey brown filter that we get on this rover, this is much worse. But it effectively does the same thing, and I think they've just basically updated that technology so that these images are much brighter and we can see better and further, and it's generally better all round, really, this set of cameras on the Perseverance rover. So there we are, we can see both of them there, and you can flick between them. So links will be for all these things below. There they are. Let's have a look with the magnifier and see what we can see with this one. You see that detail on top there? Right, and you can see that head support there at the back. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Slightly different angle, but we can still see the same things. Head supports are a bit clearer on this one because this is the actual right camera, so we're seeing round it more, round this end of the object, or sarcophagus. And you can see those details on top with what looks like a hook-shaped object there, which may be a staff or scepter, like I showed you on that Tutankhamun figurine, okay? And there may be crossed arms here, like an arm, this is the shoulder, and maybe an arm coming up there, and then round, and then holding these objects, okay? So that's what it looks like. That doesn't mean it is that exactly, but it's something like that is going on here, okay? Because we have this as a reference. Now, this isn't the best reference, but it was one of the clearer ones I could find, and there are loads of statues, actual statues, real ones, of Tutankhamun and also his father as well, Amenhotep IV, I think he was called, who was a very, very strange looking chap. and often people have compared him to some kind of alien or something. Okay, very strange looking chap indeed. Amenhotep IV, I think his name was. Incidentally, he was the Egyptian king that started the monotheistic religion of one god, i.e. the sun god Ra. Okay, and he was seen as a heretic by many of the priests and other people in Egypt at the time for doing such a thing. But he turned their religion, instead of a polytheistic religion with many gods, into a single god, the sun, or Ra. Okay, so very controversial chap. And of course Tutankhamun himself was actually murdered at the age of 15. Okay, and this doesn't look anything like him really, but this is just a cheap figurine. So there are plenty of images of these guys. I'll put a clip in of his father in as well, because you'll recognise him immediately. He's got very almondy looking eyes, a very strange body, and looks very alien and very, very strange indeed. Okay, so the actual ancient Egyptians themselves say they came from Atlantis. Now, I have touched on this before, and I think that either the Atlanteans went to Mars in the very distant past, before the Great Cataclysm on Earth, or at the point of the cataclysm on Mars, Martians came to Atlantis, which then sank on Earth, and then they moved to places like Egypt and ancient Greece and the Far East and Central America and places like that. Okay, that's a theory, but it would explain why we see so many similarities on Mars to Earth, because either they came straight to Egypt and built the pyramids there before the actual Egyptians got there. What we know is the Egyptians didn't exist in that area. Okay, they came from eastern Turkey and sort of India, and that area. Okay, so it's possible. I'm just saying it's a theory, but it is possible, I think, that the Martians came to Earth and may have initially colonized what was Atlantis, who then colonized Egypt and built the Great Pyramids. And then the later Egyptian kings renovated some of those pyramids and then gradually got less and less sophisticated as time went on. Okay, they lost the technology they originally had, and that technology may have been sort of quasi-alien technology given to them by the Atlanteans and initially given to them by the ancient Martians. Who knows? It's almost endless. You could go into this stuff. You can think about these things. We can't prove any of it, but the similarities with these things on Earth and Mars are way, way too similar for my liking to be just a coincidence. There must be a connection, because these things are very, very similar indeed. So, I mean, there we have it. I mean, you've got these details in here. You can't see a great deal, but there is detail there. And I'll add some contrast to that, brighten it up a bit. Let's go nice and bright and then darken it as well. That might push the shadows a bit more, and we might see a bit more. It's difficult because these things are quite a long way off. You can really see that headrest now, and this thing on top here, this T-shaped thing. So this looks like there's arms, like I said, like there would be arms tucked into the shroud here, coming up, and then holding these objects like this. And there's another one there, and then this is one of the objects, like one of the scepters, and there's probably another one here, which is the curved one or something like that. Okay, but they're obviously eroded. This thing is exposed, and there's damage to it, but it's in one piece. Now this is really odd, because if you look at the actual area here, you can see that what looks like a building around it here. You've got these piles of what look like masonry, eroded masonry, with blocks and stones all piled up. And then we have a gap here, all around this thing. Right? There's a huge gap around it with nothing. But we have a row of rocks here. We have a row of rocks here, which goes right up to this ridge here. And this ridge goes, incidentally, all the way along here. There's double ridges all the way along here. and these are structures, okay? There was either a canal or some kind of double-sided walled structure here, right? Which I've shown before in previous videos from space, and I do have some aerial shots of these walls, okay? And they run in parallel all over this area, okay? But here we have a clear area with large rocks and boulders and what look like masonry here, and then a sarcophagus right in the middle with no large rocks near to it apart from this one here, which in itself is weird. That one there, it's a strange looking thing there and here, but this is clear, completely clear. So I think what we're looking at here is a tomb or mausoleum or something that was blown to bits, and somehow this survived. Okay, how the hell did this thing survive and all this get destroyed? Perhaps this was buried and the erosion has blown away the sand. Perhaps this was deep in sand in a sort of mausoleum type structure, and this may have been a whole set of structures here in this area, and some of them had burials in them. But this is really, really strange. This is highly suspect, and it looks like the remains of a structure or a number of structures around this thing, okay? But we just have flat sand here. This must have been buried for it to have survived. If there was an explosion or massive cataclysm, this would have probably been ripped to pieces like everything else. So this must have been buried or at least protected by something before it to survive this way. And that, whatever that was, is not here now. So maybe the roof got blown off or something, and this is just the inside of the room that it was in, okay? Very strange how it survived just like that. And it's got this clearing just around it. So there it is, and in this one it's slightly different colour. You can see it there. And you can see those details if you use the hover zoom magnifier. See those details on top there, okay? And that headrest just there. And the foot here. The perfect, like I said before in the previous video, perfect arch, ball of the foot arch and heel just there, okay? So how cool is that? And now the other one, which is the one that was found back in 2015, this one, is very similar with a headrest just below the neck supporting the head, okay? Very interesting. There's a few other things in here which you can check out as well. Links will be below for this. And if you look up here, this is where it is, up here. There it is. So I don't know how long this is. This may turn out to be the same size. And it's not very clear. These aren't as good, these Curiosity images. They're very muddy. This is raw. If you enhance it, it's not so bad. But you can see that headrest there and the head. And then the foot end here, the footer. And that kind of lid at a slight angle. And there seems to be part of another one up here or something. There's also some weird stuff in these rocks. There's loads and loads of complex fragments in here, including little carvings. And down here, we also have some exposed chambers, okay? And I've done a clip of them just here. We've got a row of exposed chambers. Now, I don't know whether these were burial chambers or not, but they're chambers. You can actually see the sections here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it probably goes right into this area here, buried in this sand, okay? So you can see, let's go back a bit. I'll use the magnifier because it's better to focus with that. You can see these sections here, box sections. 1, 2, you can see the edges here, 3, and more over here is another separating wall or whatever, and then another section there. So this whole area was littered with burials as well as structures, and we've even got a weird sort of gargoyle thing here, which is crazy, absolutely insane, on a plinth. We've got a plinth there, like a pillar or sort of crude column with a carving on top of it there, just there, with some weird thing sticking out there. I'm not going to say what I think that is. Okay, now this is obviously broken, right? So the top part of it's broken off, but there's what I think is a part of a gargoyle or a little statue, or statuette, here, with an appendage sticking out, okay? And it's attached to this, the foot area, and then a column which is leaning over, just there. So there were columns, there were burials, there were burial structures like tombs or mausoleums in the area. Some of these were very crude, some of them were more advanced, some were probably rich people, some were probably poor people. But for someone to have a sarcophagus of this quality, they would have to be reasonably rich. Now, I'm not saying that this one here is of a king or a queen or a prince. It may be, but it looks to me more like of someone of lower standing, lower social status. I would say someone like a lower priest or maybe a merchant or something like that, but not a particularly rich or famous person of high standing like a king or a queen or a prince or a priest. I would say this is probably someone a bit lower down in the pecking order, but maybe a prince or a lower member of a royal family, maybe, that wasn't in line for the throne, perhaps. Who knows? But you can see that it's not that elaborate. It is eroded. It's not highly elaborate, and unlike some of the ones we see here, like Tutankhamun's burial sarcophagus or casket, which is highly elaborate. He was not actually considered a big king. He was only king for a short amount of time, a boy king, and was murdered. And when they found his burial, it was absolutely packed with goodies, gold items and figurines and stuff like that. But he was one of the lesser kings. We've never really found one of the great kings like Ramses or someone like that, which hasn't already been robbed. So if a lesser king like King Tut had so much, then imagine how much more you would find if you uncovered a tomb of someone like one of the higher kings of Egypt, who was way, way richer and more powerful. Just imagine what you would find. So we've got similar things in Jezero Crater here. And when you look at the whole area, this is looking west, okay? This is due west here. There's the bunker-shaped structure that I've been going on about for a few times in the past, in the background. That's about over a mile away. Huge, great structure there, which I think is actually part of a building. It's not just a random thing. It may even be a destroyed pyramid or something. Okay? That is insane, that thing. And there's the sarcophagus, and there's loads of weird, what look like piles of masonry and destroyed structures, okay, along this ridge. And these ridges go on and on for miles, and they're twin ridges. In other words, there's what seems to be a long wall with a gap in the middle, like what may have been a canal or a road, and then another wall on the other side. So they're double ridges. In fact, whilst I'm here, I'll very quickly show you a clip from above what these double ridges look like, okay? Right, now here are some clips that I've taken from the Ingenuity helicopter. Now these were taken at height, obviously, above the ground, and some of these are really good. This one particularly is from Sol 193. You can see a double ridge here at the back, okay? And there's another one here, large ridge. This is probably a structure here, an actual building, ruined building, which is rectangular, okay? At the back here, we've got a ridge with another ridge with a row of these structures, okay? One here, one here, one here, one here. This was a long wall, and we've still got remains of the wall at the back. Now, interestingly, NASA called this area the Citadel, okay? And basically, they called it the Citadel because that's exactly what it is, right? And recently, I've been following them on Twitter. There's that one again. Let's go to this one. Here's one of these double ridges, look. Okay? We've got a row of rocks here and another row of rocks here. And these are all over this area, okay? And they all join up, like roads or canals, okay? So they were either raised roads or canals with walls either side. You can see them here, right? See that gap? And interestingly, when I was following some of these NASA people on Twitter, they were referring to the way back towards the Citadel as the gate. Now this is a direct quote from NASA, okay? They called it the gate. Where the rover is travelling back through the gate. Now I said a long time ago, before they even mentioned the word gate, that there looked like there was a gate area by the Citadel, and there was walls and a gate or entrance, what would have been the city gates, okay? This is like an armoured or castle city, okay? So they're actually using the same terminology. Now here's one of these roads here, or canals. It goes that way, joins to one here, which you can see going off there, and then here. So this is an actual junction here, okay? And I'm not sure if you can see it better now, but you can see it going off into the distance, up here, right? See those two rows coming down, parallel, perfectly parallel, goes right off into the distance, comes down here. It's a bit vague here, you can't see it very well because of the angle, but then you can see it here where it joins this one. So we've got like a T-junction, and I've got a feeling this is probably going like a crossroads here, but there's not enough in the image to see, but this may carry on down, but we've at least got a T-junction here in either a canal or road. And we have groups of structures, okay, like here, probably a building. We've got another one over here, probably a building. So these are remains of an ancient city that either had canals or roads with walls either side. But this was my favourite one because it shows what looks like an actual structure here. And then we've got this ridge at the back with a wall in front of it, okay? So these may be parts of the outer wall of the city we're looking at here. And this is either the Citadel or near it. I think this is near the Citadel. I'm trying to see if I can recognise that, the rocks here. I think this is part of the Citadel itself. This is the actual Citadel. And the gate, I think, is over here to the right. And the rover has now actually driven past this thing and is down here. But it would have gone up there and took photos from over there and then came back through the gate area, which is over here. Okay? You can't actually see the gate from here. What I'll do, I'll put some clips of these in at the end and see if I can find the gate, the actual gate for you in an aerial picture, because there are satellite images of this area and I've got all this covered. This is one of the better ones, it's really clear, okay? This isn't just normal geology, okay? This is ruins, buried in thousands of years of sand. That's what we're looking at. And for some reason, some of these things are totally exposed, like we have here, and has a clearing around it. So this must have been a structure or a set of structures around it. This was probably buried in sand and the sand's blown away, okay? This probably had some kind of mausoleum structure over it. And that's what we're seeing here, okay? These aren't just random piles of rocks like they would like you to believe. These are buried structures, mausoleums, burials, all sorts of things, all types of buildings they would have had here. Not just burials, but also castle walls, principal buildings like keeps and like a fort, as well as probably government buildings as well, but mostly town buildings, small town buildings. And the similarities between Earth and Mars are getting more apparent by the day. And anyone who denies it now would either have to be in some kind of sort of denial or just scared. Maybe they're scared of what we're finding. And maybe that's why channels like mine are censored. So please like and subscribe. Please share on social media. Clips coming up now.